Today, we're going to dig into the mindset of Rich Dad, Poor Dad to answer one single, really powerful question. What if you lost absolutely everything and had to start over from zero? I mean it. Imagine waking up tomorrow with no money, no assets, not even any connections. All you've got is what's in your head, your knowledge, and your experience. So what's your first move? Let's take a look at what Robert Kiyosaki would do.
Someone actually asked Robert Kiyosaki this exact question, how he'd rebuild his entire fortune from rock bottom, from absolute zero. And his answer, well, it was surprisingly calm.
He basically just shrugged and said, "It's not a big deal." And that response right there tells you everything you need to know about his mindset. For him, failure isn't some catastrophic end. Nope, it's just a familiar starting line.
So what is his first step? If he's starting from nothing, what does he do on day one? This is where his entire strategy takes a really, really unexpected turn.
It's not some complex financial move or a secret stock tip. It's actually something that anybody could do, but it's a move most of us would probably never even think of.
You heard that right. His big plan to rebuild his empire begins with getting a job at McDonald's. And this one single surprising move reveals his entire philosophy on how wealth is actually built.
So, the obvious question is, why? Why would a financial guru, a multimillionaire, choose a minimum wage job? He says the pay, whether it's $7 an hour or 15, is completely and totally irrelevant.
See, he wouldn't be there to flip burgers. He'd be there to learn. He sees McDonald's as a real-world MBA, a chance to get an inside look at one of the most brilliant and powerful business systems ever created. A system that turned a tiny burger joint into a global powerhouse.
But here's the real secret, the layer underneath it all. McDonald's isn't really in the hamburger business. They're in the real estate business. They use that brilliant franchise model to buy up the most valuable commercial properties on the entire planet. That's the real game he wants to study.
Okay, so understanding the system is one thing, but applying it, that's another beast entirely. This is where we see how the wealthy play a fundamentally different game with money, especially when it comes to taxes. For Kiyosaki, the formula is actually incredibly simple, and it's powerful. It has just two essential parts: a business and real estate. That's it. These two pillars are what his entire wealth-building strategy stands on.
So here's how these two things work together like magic. Step 1. Your business earns a profit. Now, instead of taking that money as income and getting hammered by taxes, you move to step 2. You use that profit to buy real estate through your business. That purchase then becomes a business expense, legally shielding that money from taxes. It's a total game changer, a shift from just earning money to owning assets. And this is that huge shift in thinking. Most people work for a paycheck, pay their taxes right off the top, and then try to live on whatever's left. But entrepreneurs who get the system, they have their business make the money, use that money to buy assets, and then pay taxes on a much, much smaller amount. They just know the rules of the game.
So how do you even develop the ability to play this game? Well, according to Kiyosaki, every single successful entrepreneur has to master 3 core components.
It breaks down just like this. First, you need the mindset. That's your why, that unbreakable will to make it happen. Then you need the skill set. That's your how, the actual practical abilities you need to get it done. And finally, you have to know the rules. That's the what, understanding the financial and legal systems you're playing in. But everything, and I mean everything, is built on that foundation of mindset. And the single most important part of that mindset is completely changing your relationship with failure. You have to learn to embrace it.
I mean, history is just littered with examples of this, right? Henry Ford went broke 5 times before he finally succeeded. Steve Jobs was famously kicked out of his own company, Apple. Bill Gates got dragged through massive legal battles. For these guys, failure wasn't a stop sign. It was just a lesson on the way to winning.
Kiyosaki makes a great point that our school system basically trains us to be terrified of failure. You make a mistake on a test, you get a bad grade, and you're told you're stupid. But in the real world, making mistakes is how you learn anything important. Just think about a baby learning to walk. They fall down hundreds of times. That's not failing. That's just what the process of learning looks like.
Okay, here's another piece of that entrepreneurial mindset that goes against what a lot of people think. It's about collaboration. So many entrepreneurs make the huge mistake of trying to do it all by themselves. In school, if you work together on a test, it's called cheating. You're always taught to be the smartest individual in the room. But in business, that is a recipe for disaster.
Real, massive success comes from building a team of people who are actually smarter than you in their own specific areas.
The LeBron James analogy is just perfect. He's one of the most gifted athletes in history, a true legend, but he couldn't win a championship all by himself. It was only when he joined a team with other superstars that he finally reached the top. You just can't win big all alone. So, you've got the mindset, you're building a team, but what about your personal money habits? Let's look at one last final piece of Kiyosaki's philosophy, and this one challenges the financial advice that we all hear every single day.
He actually argues against being super frugal. Instead of always saying, I can't afford that, he says you should ask, well, how can I afford that? If you want something, use that desire as motivation to work smarter, to earn more. Spend money on things that make you feel confident and successful, because that feeling can actually fuel you to achieve even more.
So in the end, it's pretty clear that building wealth isn't just about luck, and it's not even just about working hard. It's about understanding and using a system. Kiyosaki has his, so the real question is, what's yours?